Question Kelly! Whoever the MC.
I'm with the WBC president, Mauricio Suleiman, and he's joining us here on the Fight Guys. And the purpose of this interview today is to talk about, obviously, what's been a lot of news over the past 24 hours with the announcement of the WBC franchise belt and Canelo. And Mauricio, really what I want you to be able to have an opportunity and a platform to be able to explain to everybody what this is, the reasoning behind it, because you've been taking a lot of heat on social media. And I think that, it's only fair that you have an opportunity to express what this is all about. So really, this is about you and the WBC. So I want you to be able to address it. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. And as it is, 30 years ago, the fights were for 15 rounds. Today, they're for 12 rounds. When that happened in 1982, my father took a lot of heat. When we changed the day of the weigh-in to a day before, when the major changes in the sport have happened, of course, human nature is to have resistance to change. Before understanding what the franchise champion means, everybody's reaching conclusions, are blasting it without even understanding it. I understand and I support and I respect the opinion from anybody. There are critics that make you better, and there are critics that are simply a determined position just to go against whatever. The franchise champion is not a new world championship. It is not a new belt. It is not something to bring confusion, but it's all to the contrary. The WBC has been studying this concept for quite some time, and nobody can deny that Saul Canelo Alvarez is the current representative of boxing in the sport world. He's the highest paid athlete in the world. He's a major attraction for the sport and has been carrying boxing in the last 2 years, making the fights that put him in that position, which was to face Gennady Golovkin twice, to fight Danny Jacobs, and to simply...
Well, I was just like, where Canelo go? If I've been elevated to the regular champion, where's Canelo? How could he just skip me and just leave the belt alone like that? Well, Canelo has a bigger belt. Well, that's the bigger belt I want now. So eventually, when time comes and what he's done for the sport, I'll continue to do what I'm doing, and hopefully I'll become a franchise champion too.
And they had a franchise champion when he was supposed to get the Canelo fight. They made more franchise champions in another division. I mean, is this getting too much at this point?
Well, man, it's hard to say. Because look, like Canelo, do he deserve that? Maybe he do. He's a high-profile fighter in the sport of boxing. So is Lomachenko. And so, there may be the exception to the rule. But still, that doesn't mean that they can't fight the guys who they're supposed to fight.
With the franchise champion, do you feel like if that was presented to you, would that be something that you guys would take, or would you guys say, you know what, no, because of the hardcore integrity,
It's hard to say because unless you're in that position, then you got to know what position that you're actually in order to accept a franchise championship. So look, do the guys deserve it? Maybe they do. But still, people want to see the best fights. And look, they got Canelo. He's doing a great thing, going up 2 weight divisions to fight for the light heavyweight championship of the world. You got to give him a lot of respect for that. But, still, Jamal Charlo wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. And that's not going to ever go away.
Nueva noticia de Canelo y el título de WBC franquicia. ¿Qué piensas sobre este tema about the WBC franchise belt for Canelo?
Híjole, no sé a qué se deba. No sé si la franquicia quiera decir que no está obligado a ser pelear con el número 1, con el número 2, pues yo creo que le quitas un poquito lo que es el boxeo, ¿no? Porque para eso está la lista de los primeros 10 del mundo que puede buscar un título, pero pues actualmente Canelo es nuestro abanderado mexicano, actualmente puede hacer ahora sí que lo que él pida, porque es uno de los mejores boxeadores.
He said, we don't know exactly what a franchise title means, but from what he understands, like you don't have to fight the mandatory fighters, which is takes away from boxing because that's how a lot of guys get their chance when they get to that point to fight for a world title. But Canelo is the biggest in Mexico, and obviously the biggest in the world fighter, so that's part of it too.
Is that not right? Is that too much politics getting in boxing where, you know, a guy, because he makes so much money, he doesn't have to fight as mandatory?
Hay mucha política ya en el boxeo que alguien tiene boxeo más buena, más grande que otros, no tiene que... Él puede decidir quién son sus rivales y no tiene que pelear los mejores.
Pues sí, los tiempos han cambiado, todo va evolucionando. Antes, cuando querías pelear, te decían, vas con este duro, este más duro o este súper duro, ¿cuál quieres? Y ahorita no, ya pues como lo dicen, ya actualmente no tienes la presión de decir o demostrar con quién quieres. El boxeo de hoy, pues, es lo que está llenando las pantallas.
He said, yeah, that's how it is in boxing today. He said, back in his day, when you fight, you get to fight this tough guy, or this tougher guy, or this even tougher guy. That's who you're going to have to fight if you want to get the fight, but now it's more of a business.
And any
Brought up the two champs. What do you think about WBC and this whole franchise champion versus the main? And
well, they got the same thing at the WBA now. So they got two champions.
Right,
WBC?
yeah, exactly.
So they got the what? A diamond.
Yeah, they do have because Floyd was the diamond. They got the franchise, and I guess they got the regular now.
Yeah, but they came up with that. They came up with that champion. They came up with the franchise right at the Canelo.
Right.
So basically, to me, a franchise is you own part of the percentage of the business. Ain't that franchise means? You're a franchise fighter.
But I guess they don't have to fight mandatory.
If you make me a franchise fighter,
then I own some of it.
Then I gotta get part of the money that comes into the franchise.
Right.
Because that means you become part of the franchise. That's what the word franchise means, don't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That means you're part of the franchise.
But I doubt if they're getting...
I know, but I'm just saying.
For sure.
Talk to you about this WBC situation with Canelo. They essentially forced him to vacate the belt to one of the Charlo twins, and they elevated Canelo to the WBC franchise champion, a title that they literally made up on the spot. I think it infuriated a lot of boxing purists. I know Dan Raphael from ESPN was on a rampage about it, rightfully so. I agree with him. It kind of makes a mockery of the whole thing. Like someone like, for instance, Alex Vosdick, who's the undefeated light heavyweight champ who you train. Like, does that diminish his WBC title because now he doesn't have the franchise belt? The whole thing's a laugher. What about Wilder? He's like, what's his record? 39-0 with 40 knockouts? 40-0 with 39 knockouts. In that context, should he have a franchise belt? He's basically knocked out everyone he's fought except Fury, who he won in a country. Like, what? I just don't understand. Like, when they're sitting around, who is telling Suleiman, like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's make a franchise belt, and we'll give that to him. We'll make someone else, give someone else Canelo's belt. I'm dying to hear your thoughts on this one. That's enough for me.
It's an unregulated sport to the degree that it's unregulated. It's a travesty. That's not too powerful a word, quite frankly, what they do to the sport. And sometimes the sport becomes less relevant than it should, and that's why. And they push it towards irrelevancy with their actions. Listen, you asked a question before. You ready for the answer? Why, when they sitting around the room, the people that run these alphabet organizations, these corrupt organizations, and don't a damn person tell me that's too strong a word, because they are. You know, it's just a matter of what are they this second opposed to 5 seconds ago, but they are. It's already been documented. It's already been, go do your work, go on Google. It's been documented with these organizations where some of the heads of them have been caught on tape selling ratings. So it's been documented. The problem is the FBI and the people that investigate this don't go after it the way they would go after you or somebody else. And nobody cares enough. That's the problem. You figure out why. I'm not gonna figure that out. You figure out why. But nobody cares enough. You see the senators, the congressmen, when something goes wrong in baseball, they get involved. Why don't they get involved in this sport? These athletes count as much, should be protected as much. This sport been around longer than those sports. Why don't they? You know, what happens is, to answer your question direct, and a lot of people, when they hear this, I don't know if they're gonna fall off their seats, but it is what it is. There is an answer. Why do they make these decisions? Because a promoter, somebody else who's their partner, who shouldn't be their partner, because people making money in the industry should not be partners or close to people that administrating rules in the industry. That's obvious, but not in this sport. So somebody, when they make a decision to make a guy a franchise guy, to make Canelo, who there's no doubt he's the biggest money maker in the sport. So in some ways he's the most important guy in the sport because he brings in the most money in the sport. But there's people in the NBA that are all important. Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Kobe Bryant when he was around. They're all, but it's not the same situation. And they're all big money makers. And in football, you can come up with the same names, you know, and understand what I'm saying. When you could even say, and I'm going to go down a path, and I'm going to try to be as fair as I can. But at the end of the day, I'm going to end up in one place, the truth.
Andy, how much of the value does that WBC franchise that spent the league belt is messing with your business?
I thought I saw all Vegas yesterday too.
It's great if you're the franchise champion. You know, if you're a champion, and it's a way to avoid mandatories, and a way to fight whoever you want, and even better, if you get beat, you're still champion.
Shouldn't the number one contender be legitimately a really good fucking fighter?
Yes.
Like, shouldn't that be a really fucking good fighter so people want to see the number one contender?
Chinese guy who's a mandatory.
No, but that gets to this whole. I mean, the thing about this franchise champion thing that troubles me in general is that if the thing is the system is working right, if the system is working right, you want to see the number one contender. He's earned the right to be there.
When was the system working right?
It hasn't worked right and forever. Yeah, but when you start making franchise champions and the organization itself is saying, "Oh, fuck our own mandatory," they're almost hitting the point where they're going to start destroying themselves. I mean, because at that point, what does their belt mean?